Supporter, hold on tight, because Newcastle are about to do something huge. I'm Rodrigo, and this is Newcastle Mania, the channel made by fans, for fans who live and breathe Newcastle United. You blinked, and suddenly Newcastle are all over the headlines. After months of uncertainty, it looks like we're heading into one of those January transfer windows, with big signings, bold decisions, and possible surprises that could change the entire direction of the season. But hang on, before we get to the main story, there are two massive updates you need to hear first to really understand what's happening inside the club. Let's kick things off. News 1. The perfect transfer model. Listen, mate, if there's one thing Newcastle United are teaching the football world right now, it's how to build a giant the smart way. No panic buys, no flashy signings just for the headlines. Everything the club does follows a plan, and that plan is working perfectly. Since the Saudi consortium took over in 2021, Newcastle have gone through a complete transformation. Back then, we were fighting relegation, with no structure, no ambition, and a very limited squad. But today, it's a whole different story. St. James Park is rocking again, we're competing for the Champions League, and the fans believe once more, all thanks to a project built on patience, logic, and intelligence. And the secret? It's simple, sign less, but sign right. Every player that joins Newcastle is studied for weeks, sometimes months. The recruitment team looks at the player's profile, behavior, injury history, and most importantly, their mentality. Because Eddie Howe doesn't just want good players, he wants hungry players. Players who wear the shirt with pride and fight for their place. That's exactly how it happened with Bruno Guimaraes, who's now the brain of the team. With Botman, who became the rock at the back. And with Isaac, who arrived as a promising young forward and turned into one of the most feared strikers in the Premier League. None of these signings were random. They all follow a clear pattern. Young players with huge potential, who fit perfectly into Howe's style, intensity, discipline, and a winning mentality. But of course, success brings a new kind of challenge. Now, only the very best can make it into this squad. Every position is highly competitive, and any new signing has to reach an elite level just to get minutes on the pitch. Especially at left back and midfield, the two areas hit hardest by injuries. Lewis Hall, for instance, is seen inside the club as the long-term solution on the left. Everyone at Newcastle believes in him. But injuries and lack of rhythm have slowed his progress, leaving a temporary gap in defense. And in midfield, well, it's almost impossible to take Bruno, Joelinton, or Toon Army out when they're fit. That trio is the heart of the team, and their chemistry is something Howe doesn't want to touch. But football is unpredictable, and Howe knows that. That's why he has one simple rule: if you deserve it, you play. He doesn't care about names, he cares about effort and performance. Take Malik Thiaw, for example. He arrived quietly, with no guaranteed spot. But he trained hard, grabbed his opportunity, and now he's a guaranteed starter next to Botman. That's the Newcastle way: earn it, and you'll keep it. Howe watches everything on the training ground. He values players who give 100%, who run more, who show attitude. And when someone steps up, even if they come from the academy or out of nowhere, he sticks with them. That's the standard at the new Newcastle: hard work, merit, and consistency. No untouchable stars, no manager's favorites. If you prove yourself on the pitch, you play. Simple as that. And the most impressive thing? The club has managed to keep this philosophy even with Middle Eastern money backing it. Because let's be honest, other clubs that got massive investments lost their way fast. They spent fortunes with no plan and collapsed. Newcastle didn't. They chose the harder, smarter road, building steadily, sustainably, and without losing their soul. That's why, right now, Newcastle are a model for others. This project proves you can be rich without losing your identity. You can have stars without killing the spirit of the club or the passion of the fans. And the best part? This is just the beginning. The model is built to last for years. The academy is being modernized, the youth setup is growing stronger, and the club is already focusing on the next generation of talent. So, remember this, Geordie. Newcastle aren't just buying players, they are building a culture. A culture of hard work, pride, and belief. That's the secret behind the success, and the reason every new signing feels like a piece of a much bigger puzzle. Because the perfect transfer model isn't about spending more. It's about knowing exactly what the team needs. And in that sense, Newcastle United are miles ahead of the rest. News 2. The injury chaos. Mate, if there's one thing keeping Eddie Howe awake at night right now, it's Newcastle United's medical department. The manager is living through what can only be described as a full-blown injury crisis, and honestly, the team just can't seem to catch a break. Every single week, it feels like there's another problem, and with the squad already stretched to its limit, things are getting tighter and tighter. It's a tough moment. Newcastle have been through a marathon of intense matches, facing strong Premier League sides and European opponents one after another. And the way the team plays, high press, fast transitions, total intensity, takes a huge physical toll. The lads run non-stop, fight for every ball, and give everything on the pitch. The result? Injury after injury. Let's start with probably the most worrying case, Yoane Wissa. The forward has been one of the big surprises of the season, quick, powerful, and full of attacking energy. But unfortunately, he picked up a knee injury and is still recovering. Is expected to return only by the end of the month, most likely against Fulham, and even then, he'll be eased back in slowly to avoid any setbacks. Howe knows he can't rush it, because losing Wissa for longer would be a disaster. Another case being closely watched is Jacob Ramsey. Signed for around £40 million, the young midfielder arrived with huge expectations. Newcastle went big on him because they believe he's built for the Premier League, intensity, technique, and youth. But his start's been frustrating. Ramsey arrived injured, and fans haven't really seen him in action yet. Now, finally, he's recovering well and could make his official debut against Brighton. The fans can't wait to see him on the pitch, and let's be honest, the midfield desperately needs more options. Then there's Tino Livramento, another key player who's still out. He's recovering from a knee injury, and that's a tough one, especially for someone who relies so much on pace and explosiveness. He's not expected back until late November, which means Howe will have to cope without him for several more games. That's a real blow, because Tino is one of the most versatile players in the squad. He can play fullback, midfield, or even further forward when the team needs attacking energy. And then we've got a case that's starting to test the fans' patience, Lewis Hall. Once again, the young fullback has suffered muscle issues in his thigh, and there's still no clear recovery timeline. Hall is seen as the future of that position, but these repeated injuries are holding him back. It's frustrating for him, frustrating for Howe, and frustrating for every fan who believes in the lad's potential. The problem is, without Hall, the team loses depth on that side, and Howe's been forced to improvise more than he'd like. Another one on the list is Lewis Miley. The young midfielder felt discomfort in his calf and had to miss out on England's under-21 call-up. Luckily, it's not serious and is expected to be back soon. But even so, it served as a warning sign. This squad is right at its physical limit, and one more push could easily cause another injury. And as if all that wasn't enough, we got the most unbelievable news of the week. Dan Burn broke his hand while playing for England. Yeah, during a challenge he got hurt, and at first everyone thought he'd be out for weeks. But Burn himself calmed the fans. He's going to play with his hand bandaged. That's classic Dan Burn, pure grit and commitment, the true Newcastle spirit. Howe's relieved because losing Burn right now would be a tactical nightmare. He's a key part of the defense, especially down the left side, where he helps with build-up play and covers space brilliantly. So, yeah, the situation's crystal clear. The squad is stretched to its absolute limit. Howe's got almost no room to rotate. Any new injury could throw the entire plan for the next few weeks out the window. And with so many big matches coming up, Premier League, cup ties, and international breaks, the physical strain is only going to get worse. That's why Howe and his staff have gone into full control mode. Training sessions are being adjusted, rest days are being prioritized, and the medical team is monitoring every player closely. Right now, the key phrase inside Newcastle United is physical survival. Howe needs everyone fit to keep the team competitive. And this whole situation also makes one thing painfully clear: the squad needs reinforcements. If Newcastle want to keep competing for trophies and stay among the elite, they'll need more depth. You simply can't rely on the same players over and over again, not with the insane fixture schedule of English football. At the end of the day, mate, the truth is this: Newcastle have got the talent, the passion, and a brilliant manager. But as long as the injuries keep piling up, every match will demand pure determination and mental strength. This is the moment to test the squad, to show resilience, belief, and unity. Because if this team can get through the storm, then one thing's for sure: when everyone's fit again, no one will stop Newcastle United. News 3. The main story: Newcastle's next big signing. Alright, here we go, the moment every Newcastle fan has been waiting for. Because this time, there's some serious excitement in the air. Newcastle United will finally have money to spend in January, and behind the scenes, the board are already working quietly on the next wave of signings. After months of being held back by financial restrictions, the club have now managed to balance the books under fair play rules. And that means one thing: we can start dreaming big again. But the big question is, who's coming next? Ross Wilson, the new sporting director, is working closely with Eddie Howe on a list of strategic targets. And from what's been reported, there's already a very clear priority. A few names are being monitored, but one in particular stands out: Josh King, from Fulham. He's just 18 years old, a young forward with real promise, and there's a feeling inside the club that Newcastle might have let him slip away in the past. He's already tasted Premier League football, and Howe believes he could be a smart addition to strengthen the rotation up front. But that's not all. There are also strong plans to reinforce two key areas: midfield and left back. Journalists close to the club say the left back position is likely to be the main priority. Even though Hall and Byrne have been taking turns, that spot still feels a bit uncertain. The idea is to bring in someone solid, consistent, and ready to compete for place straight away. Others, however, believe a young and combative midfielder is exactly what the squad needs: someone who can step in when Bruno, Joelinton, or Tonali need a break. And that makes sense. The season is long, the schedule is brutal, and Howe knows he needs depth to keep the intensity high in every game. But here's where things get really interesting. There are whispers that the club could make a bold move for Kobbie Mainoo from Manchester United, if, of course, there's room in the budget after potential sales like Willock or Lascelles. It would be a massive statement signing, and one that could shake things up across the Premier League. In short, Newcastle are going all in this January. And if they manage to land the right players, the squad could become even stronger heading into the second half of the season. So, Toon Army, get ready, because things are about to get very exciting. This next transfer window could completely change the direction of the club. Now I want to know what you think. Which position should Newcastle strengthen first in January? Left back, midfield, or attack? Drop it in the comments below. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with everything happening at our club, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell, because the next few weeks are going to be epic.